What's good, creative fam? Brandon Washington here, and when it comes to filmmaking, I am obsessed with gear. So much so that I have been getting my hands on quite a few different pieces of pretty cool filmmaking gear, but realized that I wasn't really able to make enough videos to put out there so you guys could see all the cool tech that we've been able to play with, but more importantly, to see all the neat features that these different pieces of gear have been providing for us to be able to use on set and even offset as well. So I'm really excited to do this brand new video feature, which I'm kind of hoping can be like an ongoing series. I've seen a lot of tech channels do something like this, like my guy Marquez has obviously done a ton of videos like this, and so it sort of inspired me to, instead of trying to make one individual video for each of these products up front, I could just kind of do a massive culmination of all these different videos, and we are going to call this, until we come up with a better title, Dope Film Tech. So the first piece of tech I really want to talk about is the brand new Aputure P600c Nova. Now this is kind of the next step up, or the chapter 2 when it comes to the Aputure Nova series, and this thing is a beast. Now, full transparency, Aputure did send this thing out to me to check out and give some feedback on. However, they didn't require even that I made a YouTube video about it or really even share that they sent it out to me. They just really wanted to get my feedback on it. And so first of all, Aputure, thank you so much for sending this guy out. Now, personally, I already had the original Nova, the P300c, and that was by far one of my favorite lights to use. Not only just because of the soft panel itself, but of course because of the RGB features. And with the new 600, you're basically getting all of that, but double. One of my favorite ways to use it, and one of the ways we've been using it a lot on set recently, has been just to blast this thing through a giant 8x8 in order to cover an entire room with a beautiful soft light. Now, if they would have just made the original twice as powerful, that would have been enough, but they did add a couple new additional features. For one, the new control box on the back no longer needs a cable if you are attaching it directly to the back of the Nova. But also, this thing has the ability to have multiple sections of LED RGB going at the same time. In fact, you can actually have 4 different sections set up to 4 different lights, and you can have these lights running. So this has really kind of gotten my team's creative juices turning when it comes to how can we figure out a creative way to use this tech and come up with some unique lighting setups. Now, it is important to mention that if all you have are C-stands, that's not gonna work with this light. This does require a special stand, and so I actually had to run out and pick out one, and honestly, I love the one that we got. It's nice, it's small, it's heavy duty, but it works out great for this light. So the Aputure Nova 600 is a fantastic light if you are in the market for something like this. Personally, as someone who has used a lot of different light panels, including the RE Sky panel, this light is beautiful and great for that price, but it is still a pricey light. So the next piece of tech I want to actually talk about is actually an accessory to an existing piece of tech that I've talked about here on the channel, and that is the Tilta attachment for the DJI Ronin RS2. The one I'm actually talking about in this case is the Ring. Now, when DJI first came out with the Ronin RS2, it was a fantastic gimbal, but I quickly realized that I needed more than just the single hand gimbal because I was going to be running bigger cameras on it, like my Komodo. So I immediately tried to see what Tilta was putting out, and I did test here on the channel the Tilta dual grip handles, which were working, but they did have some of their own flaws. So when it came to the Ring, I was a little skeptical at first because I was a little nervous about how Tilta's build quality would be with this Ring setup, and I can honestly say this thing is the way I should have went from the beginning. Now, yes, this thing is back ordered, and I was actually able to find it on Amazon of all places. Don't worry, I'll have links below in the description if you want to check it out, but I was able to find this thing on Amazon and get it over in 2 days. And what I love most about this thing is not only is it great for just holding the gimbal itself, but there are a lot of additional attachments that you can get with this guy. If you go with the Pro setup, you actually can get 2 different handles that not only allow you to control your actual gimbal better, but they also allow you to do things like start and stop recording. You can also have control over your follow focus now at your fingertips. And you can even run power through this entire thing via a V-mount setup, which is great, especially if you're going to be powering additional accessories like wireless transmitters or monitors. You know, personally, I loved the original DJI Ronin M, and ever since DJI kind of moved away from that way and started going more towards these single hand gimbals, I've kind of really been looking for something back in that field. And I can honestly say with the RS2 and this tilt-a-ring system for the RS2, this has probably been the best gimbal setup I've ever used. So now moving out of camera stuff and moving more into sort of just basic tech stuff, but it also goes really hand in hand with the camera stuff that we've been doing, and that is the MacBook Pro M1 Max with the Max processor. I think that's how they named it. I don't know. The naming process on these new Apple computers is a little iffy, but I will say if you are an Apple user, which here in the studio, we edit on both PC and on Mac, but when we are using the Macs because we're working in Final Cut, it has been so nice to have the brand new M1 Maxes with those maxed out processors. That's gonna get really confusing. But these new computers are a breeze. Now, I know a lot of people have been asking, you know, when it comes to these computers, how do they handle, you know, the red footage, whether that's on the Komodo or the Raptor. I can honestly say that these computers are handling the Raptor footage like nothing. Now, granted, I have seen when working on the Raptor footage, or at least I have heard when using the Raptor footage, we can get those fans to kick in. So it is starting to push the computer, but it still works without any issues. We edit primarily on these systems on Final Cut Pro 10, and so it is doing a fantastic job at working with these red raw files. And even when we start editing and throwing effects on there and titles and everything like that, we still find that these computers can keep up with this footage without any issues. Another thing that's really nice about these computers is kind of the fact that they are laptops themselves. I mean, these things are very portable, which means not only can we edit our 8K footage from the Raptors, but we can do this portably and on battery nonetheless. And I will say that yes, this obviously does tax the battery a lot more, so we're not getting those exact 1-to-1 ratios that Apple was claiming on stage, but we are still getting fantastic battery life, especially for the type of workload that we're putting towards these computers. On top of that, there are some nice additional benefits that come with this new computer, like MagSafe, the reintroduction of an HDMI port, and of course, they brought back the SD card slot. Now, granted, most of our cameras don't actually use SD cards anymore, but for a lot of our behind the scenes cameras like the FX3 or the Canon R6, it is nice to have an SD card slot because let's face it, there have been times where I've been looking for my SD dongle and can't find it, so it's nice to know that if I can't come across mine, I can just use the built-in port in the MacBook. Now, moving from the ground to the sky, let's talk about the brand new DJI Mavic Pro 3. Now, the Mavic Pro 2 was my previous gimbal, and when the Mavic Pro 3 first came out, I immediately upgraded to it for really two main reasons. One, it now could shoot in ProRes, and two, it had a terabyte of internal storage. For me, this is huge, primarily because I was notorious for forgetting to put an SD card in my drone before taking off. And that's because, well, all of my cameras that did use SD cards used the bigger SDs. These obviously use the micro, so I was always forgetting. So having that built-in 1 terabyte of storage is crucial. Now, I know that only comes with the bigger bundle option or the Cine option, but if you can get the Cine option, I strongly recommend it, especially since they recently just came out with their new update. Now that this thing has officially been updated, I can hop on YouTube here and tell people that yes, I strongly recommend this drone. Before the update, not so much, because it was missing a lot of normal things, such as just being able to see a LUT on your D-Log footage, or being able to have some basic features that pretty much all the other drones already had. Now we can find those things on the Mavic Pro 3. Personally, I feel like they might have rushed this drone out at first, and so the software wasn't quite there, but they were just trying to get it out before the holiday season. But now that we are past the update period in January, this drone is fantastic. I actually took it out, got some amazing footage with it with the new update, and trust me, it is worth it. It is a much better drone now. Now this next piece of tech actually really is not filmmaking tech, but I've been kind of using it as filmmaking tech, and that is the Remarkable 2 notebook. Now, the Remarkable 2 notebook is, for one, I will say, a very overpriced notebook. That is just going to be kind of my first thing in case anyone out there knows how much this thing ends up costing after you get all the accessories. But I do have to say, as someone who takes notes constantly, whether I'm taking notes for YouTube videos or client projects, or I'm just working out some ideas in my head, I like to have a digital way to take notes. Now, obviously, you could definitely use an iPad, which for most people I would probably recommend, yes, go with an iPad. It's a better bang for your buck, and you can definitely write with the Apple Pencil. However, I have tried the iPads, even with the paper-like screen protectors on there, in order to make the iPad feel like paper, and I keep coming back to the fact that it just doesn't really feel like paper. I am a big notebook guy. I have tons of notebooks, but it wasn't until I picked up the Remarkable 2 that I really stopped going back to my notebooks. I think for me, one of the biggest benefits of the Remarkable 2 is the fact that there are no distractions. I'm not getting notifications about emails or about apps or text messages or anything else. Whenever I'm writing in my Remarkable 2, that is the only thing I'm doing, and nothing else is getting in the way. On top of that, the battery life on this thing is fantastic. They claim that it can get you about 2 weeks, but if you're like me and you're using it pretty much all day during the work hours, you're probably gonna get closer to about a week on this guy. You know, honestly, when I purchased it, I didn't really think I was going to like it as much as I was. And even in the first like 48 hours, I wasn't 100% sold. But after using it consistently, trying it out, and really getting into the habit of going to this instead of a normal notebook, if you are a huge note taker and you're someone who's looking for a digital way to actually take notes, this is something you can definitely check out. And for those of you guys who are just super interested, yes, it can convert your notes into text, and you can send it off as PDFs to other people. So it doesn't just have to live on this guy. You can send it off for this device, but unfortunately that does come at a monthly subscription, which at this point I am so sick and tired of monthly subscriptions. And the last piece of dope film tech that I want to talk to you guys about is actually a new product that was recently just sent out to us, and that is the Portkeys SDI EVF. This is basically an EVF that you can connect to pretty much any camera, because it's not just SDI, it is also HDMI driven. The nice thing about this is all you have to do is plug this directly into your camera, either through your SDI port or your HDMI port, and you're gonna get that same signal that you would put to a monitor through an EVF. This is super helpful, especially when filming in bright days where a monitor could have a glare on it, or it could just be too bright to really see what the monitor has. An EVF, just like with any mirrorless camera out there today, can really help you dial in your shot. I found that this screen is pretty decently bright, but because it is inside of an EVF, you don't have to worry about getting any type of sun flares or any glare on the screen. You're also going to find all your traditional things that you'd find on most monitors, things like waveforms, focus peaking, and even some shortcuts. So you have 4 mappable shortcuts that you could actually change if you want to turn certain settings on and off. So that way you never even have to take your eye away from the EVF while monitoring your shot in order to make some just simple changes. This thing can be battery powered, but it also does come with a cable that allows you to directly attach it via D-tap to any V-mount or Go-mount batteries. So you can pretty much have this thing powered off the same battery you're using to power your camera. You know, when it came to using an Alexa a few years ago, I loved the EVF, and I fell in love with just the idea of having an EVF on my cinema camera. But most cinema cameras don't come with EVFs, whether that's the Blackmagics, even the new Reds don't have dedicated ones. And so there are a lot of expensive EVFs out there that you can get. But one thing I love about the Portkeys one is that it is more price conscious. Again, if you have any questions, or if you guys want to check out any of the products that I talked about in this video, I'll have those linked down below in the description. But thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of Dope Film Tech. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more of the dope film tech that we use here, whether on projects or just are reviewing for YouTube, definitely let me know. And if there's any dope film tech out there you think we should check out, leave those down in the comments as well. Thanks so much for checking out this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.